You're listening to The Real Short Box, a comic book podcast made for geeks by geeks.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to The Real Short Box. My name is Donald.
And I'm Darin.
Hey, Darin. We're going to be talking about somebody pretty cool. We're going to be doing an actor spotlight on one Mr. Josh Brolin.
Oh, wow. That's a great choice. You know, I have a whole hell of a lot to say about Josh Brolin, who's a very underrated actor, in my opinion.
Agreed. In fact, I did not know, that you just told me earlier that Brolin's first film, it looks like, was The Goonies from 1985.
Yeah, it's according to Internet Movie Database over here, which is a very reliable source for this kind of data. That was his very first film, and I mean, he's quite memorable in that one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because it's interesting, because, like, you know, and we're just going to jump right into it, I guess, here. But, like, if you really look at his acting career, I mean, from, like, 1985 all the way up to maybe, like, 2000, he had a lot of roles, but I mean, they're not really roles that, in movies or TV shows that you would, you know, remember necessarily. You know, like I see like Mimic in 1997, which I really like that film, but I don't remember Josh Brolin in that. I would just have to go straight to like Hollow Man in 2000, you know, the Paul Verhoeven film, to really like be like, oh, who the heck's that guy? I don't even know who that is, you know?
You know, I don't even remember him in Hollow Man, to be honest. Not at all. Don't remember him that. Like, I remember him in The Goonies, and then I remember him in No Country for Old Men, and then, like, Sicario, Everest. I remember him in Everest. Inherent Vice. I remember him in that. And then, of course, the Deadpool 2, and then, in Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers Age of Ultron, Avengers, Infinity War, Endgame, all that stuff, because he played comic book characters. He played Cable in Deadpool 2, and he played Thanos. But I guess we should start back at the beginning. He was born in 1968. He was born in, I believe it was Santa Monica, California. He's the son of Jane Cameron and actor James Brolin, who's, of course, his father. James Brolin, very famous for quite a few things. In fact, very famous for almost becoming James Bond.
Wow, I didn't know that. I thought you were going to say he was really famous for Dana Carvey's, you know, playing his father in The Master of Disguise. But you know, I didn't know you were going to go there.
No, I wasn't going to say that. But that's good to know.
Yeah. James Brolin, as I remember, at one point was either dating or married to Barbra Streisand.
I think they officially marry now? Aren't they officially like married?
I mean, they may still be. I mean, you'll have to forgive me. Like, we here at The Real Short Box, we know a lot of things, but usually, like, celebrity gossip, we don't really know much about their personal lives, so we try to avoid that. We just try to stick to the work. But, I mean, it would make perfect sense.
Yeah, I think they've been married for a while now. Him and Barbra Streisand, and they talk about how it really worked. I read about it actually in Parade magazine.
Oh,
yeah, you know, a lot of older people still get printed newspapers, and I was at the house of a 88-year-old who happened to have a newspaper and had Parade as part of the newspaper, and it was right on there about him and Streisand's love life and how good it is and how well they relate to each other and how they're able to stay together for so long and yada, 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 yada.
Yeah, and Barbra Streisand is a great manipulator of the media, too, so, you know, I'll take that one with a grain of salt.
Yeah. But James Brolin, it's funny because we were talking about this. He actually played Nathan Fillion, who played Castle on the TV show Castle. He played Castle's father in that series, which I thought was pretty cool.
It's very cool. I mean, I would never have thought of that. You know, I mean, I've been over at Castle before, and I've seen, you know, the guy who played Steve Urkel up close, but I never saw James Brolin.
Yeah, yeah. James Brolin actually was in a movie with to swing it back around to 80s nostalgia. Was in a movie with what's his name? He played Inigo Montoya. From
Mandy Patinkin.
Thank you, Mandy Patinkin from The Princess Bride. He was in a movie with him called Night of the Juggler. And
What?
yeah, that was an interesting one. It was a thriller where he was like a kind of a not quite a deadbeat dad, but kind of a not very popular father, and he was looking after his daughter, who then got kidnapped by this like perverted psycho killer.
Oh.
And then the whole movie is him chasing after him. And the funny thing is that he hurt his foot during production. James did. And they just kind of wrote it into the script then that he got hurt. So then the whole film was him kind of hobbling around while chasing after his daughter.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah. And Mandy Patinkin played this taxi driver that was like dedicated to helping him. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah. Wow.
They were both phenomenal. They played it at the New Beverly Cinema, which is now owned by Quentin Tarantino. And Quentin, I think, was a fan of the movie as well.
Oh, I'm sure he is. I mean, Quentin is always a big fan of off-brand stuff, especially when it is, exploitation or, B cinema.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, for me, like Josh Brolin, he really kind of came into his own here, like, No Country for Old Men, which is a film that, that I'll just stick by with my opinion here. I really love 90% of it. I really don't like the other 10, but I don't like the other 10 so much it almost ruins the other 90. The chase scene between him and Javier Bardem, just that whole, I mean, we're talking like 45 minutes worth of like the film dedicated to them, pursuing one another. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was really probably the strongest part of the film for me. And he kind of just jumped on my radar here. And then, when he played a Detective Trupo, an American Gangster, with Denzel Washington, where he played basically a sleazebag, corrupt detective. That's when I really started to say, man, I mean, this guy might not be doing any wrong.
Yeah, it's true. It's funny how his career really kind of took off, because, and even he kind of stepped away from acting for a while after his second film. I think it was called Thrashin', where he said that he did not, he saw his acting as some of the worst acting he'd ever seen, and it was his own. And so he didn't feel like he should continue or keep trying. So he stepped away from acting for a while, and then eventually started taking like some stage roles and stuff in New York. And then started doing some like TV stuff, he was, I think he was Wild Bill Hickok in a Western series for one of the TV networks. And that lasted like 3 or 4 seasons, if I recall. I think it was 3 seasons. Then he was in Winnetka Road, which was an Aaron Spelling production, and Mr. Sterling. And both of those series were canceled pretty early on in their run. I mean, like, definitely within the first season. I don't even think it got through a first season for either one of those. And then he auditioned for the part of Tom Hansen in the series 21 Jump Street. As we all know, that was actually Johnny Depp's role. So obviously he didn't get it. But him and Johnny Depp, I think that's how they met. And then they kind of stayed friends throughout their career, which is cool. It's cool to see that. Yeah, no. And if you ever meet Johnny, I mean, it doesn't shock me. Like, he's a pretty friendly guy. I've heard that he actually does still keep in contact with Richard Grieco, who obviously did not have the big, career blow up that Johnny did. But, but also, too, he just managed to maintain friendship with him, which is really cool. Yeah, that's nice.
Moving forward, a really interesting, to me, acting performance from Brolin was obviously Dan White in the movie Milk, but I wanted to really spotlight heavily his portrayal of George W. Bush in Oliver Stone's W. Now, there was two
George Bush films, weren't there at the time?
I don't believe that there was another one that was really significant, unless you want to count, Harold and Kumar Escape from Guantanamo Bay, where they have George W. Bush in there smoking grass with them, which is I really don't know. That's a great
Wasn't
question.
there one on Dick Cheney?
Yes, that's more recently though.
Okay. All right.
Vice with Christian Bale. I think that was directed by the guy that did Step Brothers.
Got it.
Yeah. So anyway, W, like, it's weird because while I was watching it, I enjoyed it while I was watching it. But, when I stopped to think back on it, like, there's nothing like bad I can say about it. I'm just not sure how much I enjoyed the movie. But his portrayal of George W. Bush was actually, I felt, really complex and really interesting. I think it's really easy when people do biographies about politicians to let their biases show, whether they really like them or whether they really don't like them. I never quite got that heavily in this movie, and I think a lot of that is on Josh Brolin's performance. He really played an interesting guy. I mean, there's, Bush had stereotypes about everyone thought he was really dumb and all these things, and that clearly, of course, was not true. But like, he really played him in an interesting way, and like an almost humane way, if you will, which really, like, I haven't seen a movie about a president like that really played someone that much, made them seem very human. So kudos to him on that, because I really don't think there's 5 actors that could have done it better than Brolin.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So,
Brolin also played quite a few, and I know we'd mentioned the comic book characters and stuff, but I think he played like 4 or 5,
Yeah, I noticed how you conveniently left out Jonah Hex in your original diatribe.
I did. And about 2-3 years ago, I did go and finally watch Jonah Hex. I had the option to buy it on DVD for $4, and I was like, maybe that's too much. So I streamed it for free. One of the platforms are streaming it, and I watched it, and I was thankful I didn't buy it for the $4 because it's not a good film. If you want a good Jonah Hex story, Jimmy Palmiotti and Justin Gray do for DC comic books. They do a Jonah Hex run and an all-star Western run with Jonah Hex that's just phenomenal. It is such great storytelling. I don't think there could be a movie or a TV show that does him any more justice than that, or does him better. So if you're really a big fan of Jonah Hex, I would check out the comic books with Jimmy Palmiotti and Justin Gray. But the film for DC wasn't great. He also played, if I recall, Agent K in the third Men in Black, which also was originally a comic book from Malibu Comic Books.
Yeah, he did. And honestly, like, I mean, the third Men in Black film, I mean, I didn't mind it. I enjoyed it for what it was. But yeah, he definitely added something to it for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think there's any question, and it was really, it's you're starting to see all of this stuff just kind of crop up. I mean, even a movie like True Grit for its time was the remake was pretty popular. Right around then he did Gangster Squad, which was not a huge success, but it was definitely a high profile movie while it was filming.
Very true.
And yeah, you're starting to see him be uncredited in Guardians and Age of Ultron as Thanos. So like, yeah, you really started to see a big change here. And I'm like, man, what is this guy not doing? And he's just such a likable guy on screen. You can't help but watch him, which is a sign of a great actor.
Yeah, and he's a poet on social media too. The way he talks and the way he photographs and his photography and stuff. It's very inspiring. So you could tell there's a lot of passion within the man, which is nice to see. Somebody still having such passion in their craft and in what they do.
Oh, and it shows on screen. I mean, it's really hard for me to think of a time I really didn't like him. I mean, even in something like Jonah Hex, I mean, you still can't help but like him.
Right. Even in Old Boy, where he's not a very likable character, but, you're just still rooting for him. Old Boy, of course, is a remake of the South Korean film that came out like in 2003, I want to say, somewhere around there.
Yeah, about '05, I want to say, if I had to take a guess. But basically in there.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was even that. It wouldn't have been nearly as good as it was if it wasn't for him, if it wasn't for Brolin, because he just brings that smoldering intensity to the character that you need. Even with Cable in Deadpool 2, there's this smoldering intensity that he brings to that character. Cable's such a cool character, and I think he really did an amazing job. And he did such a varied, amazing job with Thanos too. And it's MCAP kind of work what they were doing, you know, it was still him, though. You know what I mean? It was still him acting it out. It was still him doing the role. So it was really cool to see Thanos come across and look so real and imposing and stuff, and have his voice, his kind of gravel voice, you know?
I was just going to say that, too. Like, I mean, the gravel in his voice, it really reminds you of a much more old-fashioned actor, you know, sort of like a John Wayne or a Lee Marvin, but like, you know, as much as I like Lee Marvin is basically plays a hard ass and everything. Josh Brolin, he just plays convincingly so many more like relatable characters, I guess you could say. I really dig that. I think that there's definitely like a masculinity that comes out of him that you just don't see in most actors these days. You know, and you feel like you could have a cigar with the guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think he's currently married to like somebody that's 20 years younger than him. So he's got somebody that keeps him young. He's got this poetic nature about him that kind of dates him and ages him a little bit, but he still has one foot in that youthfulness that's required for playing some of these characters. So it's nice to see that he's able to dip back into that and back and forth. And you don't get that with everybody. It would be hard pressed for me to see, even 30, 40 years ago, to see Clint Eastwood kind of dip back into a youthful era. He always seemed like the get off my lawn kind of man, you know?
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think Lee was the same way. Lee Marvin, you know, you would see that get off my lawn kind of person. What's his name? Charlton Heston, yeah. And even what's his name? Oh, geez, Bronson. Bronson.
Charles Bronson, William Holden. I mean, yeah, these are real throwbacks here.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And those are guys that are like, you couldn't see them playing youthful characters anymore. You just couldn't do it because they had played these rough and tumble kind of guys for so long. Even Bruce Willis, to a point, at this point now, he's kind of done that to himself with the films he's chosen. But prior to that, he had that lovable playfulness that he was pulling off in Die Hard, Hudson Hawk, Fifth Element, those types of films where he had his sense of humor, his quirkiness to him. But lately, it just seems like that's kind of faded from him. And that, I think, when that happens, you may fade from obscurity unless you lean more into the Liam Neesonism, which is just be an action star then at an older age. And that's fine too.
Right. And with Liam, you know, especially after the death of Miranda, I mean, he clearly started occupying himself with more work. And I mean, he really didn't let up for at least 10 years. I mean, Liam just goes and goes and goes, you know, and it's weird because like you don't want to overexpose a guy like Liam because he's so talented as an actor. But he just kind of just went at it, and he happened to come across a lot of great hits. So big ups to him, man.
The Take-Ins and then the Nonstop, and even now, I mean, he was in a Netflix original called Ice Road that was pretty good.
Yeah, because he was in a film that took place in, like, I want to say Alaska or Denver or something like that. It was like a remake of a European film. I quite liked it. Ice Cold or something. I can't remember. But it was really stupidly entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
had that kind of dark sense of humor to it. But anyway, you know, back to Brolin here. I mean, something like Sicario, for example. So, like, when I go to work, we've got a police tech coordinator, and they always talk about Sicario. Like, Sicario is like the gold standard of like cop movies of the modern age, and there he is, like right in the middle of Sicario. You know,
Did we talk about how unnecessary a sequel for Sicario was?
I didn't watch it, but I did not hear good things.
It is not a good film.
It's very unfortunate because the first Sicario really set a standard.
Yeah. Some people liked it, I'm sure, that wanted more of the same, but you always kind of want something a little different. Still furthering the story of the characters and stuff, but just a little different. It just didn't seem to do either one.
Right. And I got real excited because there was a film that had come out. It was called Only the Brave, which was a true story about some California hotshots that ended up being killed in a fire. That he plays the lead role in. I mostly went to see it because Joseph Kaminsky was the director, who's the visionary behind, Tron Legacy and the Tom Cruise film, which is Oblivion. And I think he's doing the new Top Gun film. And, like, you know, I expected more out of it, you know, because Kaminsky's such a great visualist. But once again, it's like, I mean, you're telling me that, like, Josh Brolin is going to be playing the head of firefighter hotshots? That's the perfect role for him.
You're right. I watched that movie on my way to China, actually, in flight. I watched it. So it was it wasn't my favorite movie in the whole wide world, but I enjoyed it enough, you know what I mean? And part of it was his commanding presence as a leader and as an individual in the film. I felt really carried it. Was the movie great? No. It was no Firestorm, I will say that.
You did not say Firestorm.
Oh, yeah, I brought that up.
Not say fire. I mean, we all know the gold standard is Backdraft. I mean, and if you watch like Ladder 49, you end up figuring out why Backdraft is the gold standard. But, like, yeah, I mean, that's...
Yeah. Well, yeah, Backdraft when we're talking about, like, city fires and stuff. But we're talking... I thought we were talking about fires and forests and stuff. And there's none better than Firestorm, in my opinion.
Oh, dear God. You must be Howie Long's PR guy.
It may or may not be paying me to say these things. Both him and the always exceptionally talented William Forsythe.
I love William Forsythe. Are you kidding?
There you go. You just made $10, Darin.
So, I mean, I guess we pretty much have come to Thanos. I don't know if we need to go too in depth about Thanos, as we've covered him repeatedly on other podcasts.
Right.
But yeah, Thanos to me, I'm not a big MCU guy in the sense that it's like I get super stoked for every movie. And in fact, when you invited me to go watch Infinity War, I just kind of wanted to go out and socialize and be like, yeah, I'll keep watching these things. And Infinity War kind of blew my mind, and a lot of that is because of Josh Brolin. Yeah,
what a fun film. I mean, you put that one up against Endgame. Endgame is so, like, in a lot of ways depressing, and there's an ending to it that's just kind of sad. But Infinity War is what sets all that up. And granted, you know, it's been being set up for years, but Infinity War really put the nail in, you know, really hammered it in. It's so much fun. And some of the best characters in there are characters that you would least expect to be some of the best, in my opinion, anyway. Like Wanda, the Scarlet Witch, and Vision, as far as like their relationship as lovers and as fierce fighters for each other. I thought that was exceptional and led perfectly into WandaVision. I also thought that Doctor Strange could finally really cut his teeth on and show some of his power set in that film, and I was very happy for that.
I mean, I have to be just looking at it from just purely a comic book perspective only. I don't want to put this in all movies of that genre, but as far as comic book films go, Infinity War might have like 4 of the best action scenes you'll ever see in a comic book movie. That, like I said, 4, like 4 of the best action scenes. I don't remember one action scene in Endgame that was not only on par with it. I just don't remember one action scene in Endgame. Like, just it didn't hit me at all. But even something as simple as Ebony Maw and the guys down there, you know, fighting Iron Man and Doctor Strange, you know, in the beginning of the movie. I mean, that's like a tremendous action sequence, and it's not even the best action scene in the movie. Like, I don't know. I was kind of blown away by that because I feel like Marvel MCU action scenes got very predictable, with exceptions like Winter Soldier and other things, which had really kind of original, cool action scenes. But they got really kind of stale, and that film completely refreshed my view of the MCU and encouraged me to finish it out.
I think Black Widow recently has brought back some of that fun in the action element of it, so to speak. I really enjoyed that film. And I think that they had to do a lot of like bare knuckle fighting and stuff, which made it pretty fun. And they had to find a way to make it fun. And I enjoyed the cleverness that was involved in it.
Yeah, you know, I haven't seen Black Widow. All of my stuff that I get from people is just from hearsay. So, like, you know, I don't want to sit here and talk about it too much.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you got to do it. I mean, obviously the MCU is concluded with Endgame, and now you're in another phase, and the next phase has to do what the previous phase didn't do, except the previous phase did everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're talking about Goonies alumni. You know, we're talking about a star of 4 comic book franchises, 2 of which are still hugely popular. We're talking about the son of James Brolin, actor extraordinaire, you know, with stepmom Barbara Streisand. We're talking Josh Brolin and his exceptional career in talent as an actor. And I don't know of a better way to speak of this in his career than by saying, you know, Goonies never say die. And never say die. He was a true Goonie, and he still is in my book, and his book, I'm sure, as well. Everybody else's.
Yeah, and we will be looking forward to him playing Gurney Halleck in the new Dune movie.
Yes, the new Dune film. That'll be coming out quite soon.
Yeah, it's supposed to. I mean, you know, you hear things like, it's tough to know because, you know, in this industry, Donald, that, I mean, it's just, there's so many people that say so many things, but you can't confirm it until something actually comes out and you can actually watch it. And yeah, I mean, I'm always interested to see how people interpret Frank Herbert's Dune. Yep,
same here. But I think that's going to do it for us here for this podcast on Josh Brolin. We want to thank you all for listening and taking the time to listen to us. Of course, my name is Donald.
I'm Darin.
You can find us on the YouTube page for Rumble Spoon Productions. We do a live podcast there. We also do audio podcasts that you're listening to right now, available on Darin's favorite,
Sprecher.
There you go. Also on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Google, and a whole host of others. If you can't find us on one, reach out to us. Let us know. We are on social media. We're on Twitter. We are on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're all over the place. And we do want to give a quick shout out. Thank you to our sponsors, Half's Hot Sauce and Splattered Frog Brewing, the brewery. So thank you to you guys for sponsoring us. We always appreciate it. And hopefully sometime soon in the near future, we will see you
at the righteous, unbelievable, fantastical, whimsical. How does Kevin do this? At the comic shop.
Yes. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
All right.
This has been The Real Short Box. We'll see you at the comic shop. Thanks for listening.